The powerful forces of greed and fear in decision-making. This book aims to explore the intricate web of human emotions that significantly impact our actions and decisions. It's not meant to offend, but to express my thoughts. We live in intriguing contradiction. We're told not to be selfish, yet our species wouldn't have thrived without a degree of self-interest. This instinct to put ourselves first and gather resources has historically been vital for survival. Similarly, fear, a primal emotion, plays a key role in our lives. It shapes our actions and decisions as we fear others' judgment, highlighting our inherent need for social acceptance. People often behave cautiously around those with disabilities, uncertain of how to act. They may form preconceived ideas about the individual, leading to overly sympathetic or excessively judgmental behavior. The ideal middle ground, treating everyone equally, is often overlooked. This isn't to say there aren't genuinely kind people, but societal fear and pressure to conform often limit their numbers. Living unhindered by others' opinions is liberating and aids personal growth. It's an undeniable truth that pleasing everyone is impossible, hence staying true to your values is essential. Despite loneliness being a common human experience, we've learned to coexist with it. A judgmental person may not even realize their bias, whereas a lonely person, with ample time for introspection, becomes acutely aware of social norms and their failure to meet them. This lack of interaction exacerbates loneliness, leading to behaviors that may seem out of character. Lonely individuals strive to interact, but their circumstances often isolate them. They may struggle with social anxiety. While some prefer solitude, many, like myself, long for the chance to build various relationships. If a minority feels confident in their argument, they will express it. However, if they anticipate group rejection, they're likely to remain silent. This phenomenon is known as the spiral of silence. People may not realize that this individual's life may already be disrupted, and they continue to dwell on any perceived mistreatment, no matter how minor. The person in question may already be vulnerable, and these experiences only intensify their vulnerability. This could lead to defensiveness and insecurity or, less commonly, aggression. They might find it hard to trust, doubt everything, and thus, not feel safe. While people may not intentionally hurt our feelings, we often perceive invalidation, even when it's not present. Eventually, we stop seeking emotional connection, further reinforcing the reputation we're trying to discard. This is often a scenario that's obsessed over. The perception of the world is subjective. A successful world comprises diverse individuals, each with their unique worldview. Some may see a glass of water as half full, while others may see it as half empty. A person stranded in a desert might see it as the ultimate source of refreshment, while a fish might be puzzled at how its natural environment can be contained in a glass. I have come to accept disability as a natural part of life, shedding the stigmas I held in my youth. The definition of disability and its effects on people are as diverse as our fingerprints. For instance, in a day center for people recovering from head injuries, while we all shared the same type of trauma, it affected each of us differently. Even within a diagnosed category, say autism, there are countless varying scales and effects. And just like anyone else, moods can greatly affect the presentation of a person with a disability. Our thoughts and perspectives are influenced by a multitude of factors: news, publicity, societal norms, and what we hear and see. All these external influences can impact how we perceive the world and ourselves. Consider a person with a severe disability, potentially brain damaged. Their thoughts and views could be doubly influenced by community reactions or stories of other people's disabilities, which could inspire hope. Given the diverse portrayals and perspectives on a single subject, it's no surprise that it can be challenging for some to define and accept. It brings me joy to hear that more children with disabilities are being integrated into mainstream schools. I apologize if my writing reflects the past more than the present, but I guarantee that this book will offer some form of education. You will learn something new. Regardless of how much you think you know, We all continue learning throughout life, and we all have something unique to teach. Perhaps you think you have no desire to learn about our experiences. But just remember, many of us were once in your place of fitness and may have had similar thoughts. Statistically, most people will, at some point in their life, suffer from mental health issues or physical disability, whether temporary or permanent. Integrating children with disabilities into mainstream schools is a crucial step towards progress. I can't see any other feasible solution to what has been a long-standing issue. Parents who live close to a child with a disability often gain a deeper understanding and acceptance of the reality of living with a disability. Simple explanations: old age, accident, illness are not enough to fully understand the daily struggles people with disabilities face. Assumptions can be misguided. Some people assume I must have been born with a disability, or that I must be rebellious or troublesome. But as we all know, it's best not to make assumptions. I certainly don't. The diversity of perspectives is part of the reason why the fight for inclusion is such a struggle. As for the question of free will versus determinism, I argue that both are limited. Our decisions are always influenced by external factors. For instance, if you're presented with two choices, but one of them is not available, then you're left with only one option: a deterministic outcome. The natural world operates on the principle of the path of least resistance. When we encounter resistance, our survival instinct kicks in and we become more alert. The mind doesn't distinguish between real and imagined threats, leading me to my hypothesis: disability discrimination equals resistance. This resistance then determines how you unconsciously react. Reward is a powerful motivator for an active mind. This message goes out to all those who exploit vulnerability for personal gain. This book spans many decades, with information that was accurate at the time of writing. Why do drink drivers still exist, and why do we still struggle with disability acceptance issues? Almost everyone I've spoken to knows someone who has driven under the influence, and some know people who do it regularly. Disability issues are still prevalent. Just the other night, a woman told me to wobble off simply because I was trying to make friends. Once you enter this world, your understanding of neglect skyrockets. Another issue I've grappled with is the influence of past thoughts on current ones, which then shape my reality. This cycle continues, with past influences affecting current thoughts, which then alter my reality, and so on. Regardless of the world you live in or how you arrived there, luck and the education and parenting you received have likely played significant roles. So, if we want to see progress in our world, these areas need attention. While we can't control luck or parenting, I am advocating for a major overhaul of the education system. Emotional intelligence, which is arguably more important than intelligence quotient, should be part of the curriculum. The world needs to catch up. This is the new millennium. A comprehensive examination, the intricacies and complexities of perceiving reality. Our mental capacities as humans offer us a myriad of ways to represent the world's structures. These representations can take various forms, such as thoughts, perceptions, beliefs, desires, mental images, and language. In this piece, I will delve into each of these facets, sharing my personal experiences shaped by a lifetime of challenges, victories, and transformations. Thought is a powerful tool. Reflecting on my early years, I realize my thinking was somewhat limited. I believed I excelled in all my undertakings, but failed to truly recognize my unique talents and abilities. This dramatically changed after a severe brain trauma, which resulted in the loss of my mental capabilities, affecting everything on this list. Despite the immense difficulty and setback, I persevered and slowly rebuilt my life. I hope that by sharing my journey of recovery and the consequent loss of mental capacity, you will gain a renewed appreciation for your own abilities. Now, I frequently experience moments of inspired thought as I navigate life's various realities, each offering unique perspectives and lessons. Perception can be complex and often misleading. My early years, which saw me transition into adulthood, were characterized by naivety. I believed life was easy and everything would naturally fall into place. Interestingly, I received messages, which I initially dismissed as mere thoughts, assuring me that everything would eventually turn out fine. Back then, I didn't worry about the future or contemplate it much. I lived in the moment, engaging in risky behaviors such as drunk driving without considering the possible consequences. The potential impact of a car crash on my life and my family's lives didn't cross my mind until decades later. Now, I often reflect on the past, using my experiences for a purpose. I also spend a good amount of time envisioning and planning a promising future. I write about my past not just to revisit it, but also to inspire a refusal in the community to experience anything similar. Belief is a powerful motivator. I admit that my initial beliefs about the world being a harsh place filled with deceit have resurfaced after a period of believing in people's inherent goodness and the world's beauty. Unfortunately, I have encountered lies and deception even in what one might consider divine territories. I have journeyed through various realities, some divinely crafted, others shaped by personal catastrophes. My earlier perception that disabled individuals constantly complain and receive preferential treatment was shattered when I faced the harsh reality of disability. Desire fuels ambition and aspiration. My aspirations have evolved over the years, influenced by my experiences and insights. Despite some of my desires seeming unrealistic to others, I have a clearer vision of my place in the future than ever before. Language connects individuals, cultures, and ideas. I have always appreciated good conversation and effective communication. However, after my brain damage, I struggled with language, including difficulties finding words and temporary speech troubles. Despite these challenges, I continue to use language to share my experiences and insights, hoping to inspire others. Poem. Heed. Embrace creativity, brother. The shadow remains unseen, withheld. Foster a connection, an ordinary yet unique encounter. Turmoil exists, chaos born from a single place, a single cause. Driven by life's intoxication, bilingual effects ripple through ongoing centuries. Authors write their biographies, revealing secrets within the temple's sacred walls. Decipher and abolish, break codes and tear down barriers. It's a place devoid of mercy. One might wonder, does such a place truly exist? A deep dive into the exploration of individual identity and the intricate concept of free will. The intricate interplay between culture and psychology shapes the multifaceted concept of identity. Every individual, knowingly or unknowingly, embarks on a journey to form their unique identity, influenced by the various groups, communities, and societies they engage with. This ongoing process of self-formation shapes and contributes significantly to the social order. Let me illustrate this concept with a personal anecdote. Over time, through introspection, I developed a persona born out of my daily writings. In these musings, I found myself representing my best and worst selves, driven by a need for self-discovery. However, I realized this persona was more a product of my creativity and imagination than a true reflection of my identity. It was only when I engaged in social interactions that I understood the inaccuracy of this internal model. Throughout this journey, I received what I describe as celestial guidance, subtly guiding me through recurring suggestions, recommendations, and wisdom from audiobooks. However, this guidance wasn't always welcome. Sometimes, intrusive messages suggested that I had achieved enlightenment, which I hadn't. This journey forced me to revisit my past and question whether I had been guided all along. Was my journey preordained? Were my experiences necessary stepping stones to my current position? This led me to question free will. If our thoughts and actions are constantly influenced, do we truly have free will? Despite living in a world that champions freedom, I often feel constrained by guidance, ego, and duty. Yet, I followed this path, which, though challenging, showcased my determination, resilience, and tenacity. I derive immense satisfaction from my work, one of the few things that bring me genuine joy. I am confident in the value of what I create and believe it contributes to others' transformation and growth. I invite you to join me on this journey of self-discovery and learning. Let's embrace the challenges, celebrate the triumphs, and explore the human psyche together. From the invisible to the visible, an extensive exploration of the transformation of unapparent nonsense into undeniable truth, a comprehensive study on perception and reality. When I first tried to educate my mother about the numerous challenges faced daily by people with disabilities, her initial response was indifferent. It seemed like the situation's gravity barely affected her. However, her understanding and acknowledgement of these issues began to develop when she started observing my environment more closely. She gradually noticed the subtle but significant reactions of those around us wherever we went. The constant, intrusive stares, the shifty, darting eyes, and the upsetting looks of pity and disgust, all aimed at those with disabilities. These observations reminded her of the societal norms and attitudes we constantly confront. It was only when she heard the distressing stories of other individuals living with disabilities that she genuinely understood these instances. A personal experience also served as a wake-up call. Once, a passerby assumed she was drunk as she got out of her car, when she was just dealing with a balance and dizziness issue. This incident's absurdity and ignorance profoundly impacted her perspective. She also experienced firsthand the dismissive attitudes of people who would talk to her while ignoring me, or those with unrealistic and uninformed expectations of me. These experiences led to a significant change in her attitude, revealing truths previously hidden by societal misconceptions and prejudices. Families of individuals who have experienced trauma or live with a disability undoubtedly change and adapt over time. These realities remain largely unseen to the wider community unless they have personal experience or have faced similar issues within their own family. This lack of understanding and empathy isn't restricted to the public. Even those working in day centers for people with disabilities sometimes struggle to understand the stories of societal opposition these individuals share. It's no surprise that there are many assumptions and misunderstandings about people with disabilities. They often have a narrower worldview, conditioned reactions, and thoughts shaped by societal pressures that push them into seclusion. My patience is often tested, leading to a short-tempered disposition. A recent incident in a busy shop where my mother was scanning items at the checkout and I was packing them into bags triggered this. As she tried to hand everything to me instead of placing the items down, our interaction became awkward and I lost my temper. I've heard people muttering to themselves or even shouting, behaving according to the societal image of a mentally ill person or a drunk. Such stigmas often lead to well-meaning but misguided advice like don't approach these people or be patient and give them time. These stereotypes often exacerbate misunderstanding and frustration. Interestingly, despite their own set of stigmas and societal challenges, the homeless community often shows more understanding and less judgment towards people with impairments. Throughout my journey grappling with a severe disability, they have been a consistent source of support, displaying rare compassion and understanding. Facts are undeniable truths, just as what seems nonsensical can be truths to a minority, often dismissed as nonsense by the majority. Truths can be ambiguous and hidden from each other, yet glaringly obvious to those directly affected by them. In our interactions with others, it's crucial not to judge, as your truth may greatly differ from theirs. Your understanding of the world might be seen as blatant nonsense to them, and vice versa. Not everyone can comprehend all truths or the nonsensical. Assumptions never equal genuine learning, no matter how obvious they may seem. Consider yourself lucky if you find yourself in a good place, but remember that this good place is not an obvious truth. It's more like unapparent nonsense, subject to change in an instant. As you navigate life's maze, be mindful of others' experiences and perspectives. Incorporating these into your worldview can only enhance your understanding and empathy towards others. Understanding the complex nature of anxiety. Reflecting on my past, I grapple with the question, did I trigger my own downfall? While my decision to drink and drive directly led to the accident, other unseen factors also played a part. This event, as distressing as it was, catalyzed a profound change in my life. Despite 2 decades filled with struggle, rehabilitation, and setbacks, I'm now starting to find some joy in life. However, anxiety remains a constant presence, an unwanted guest that refuses to leave. Living with anxiety is like being trapped in a claustrophobic room, where your mind constantly conjures worst-case scenarios. This barrage of negative thoughts can lead to depression, isolation, and erratic behavior. Anxiety manifests differently for everyone. For some, it emerges during specific events like job interviews or first dates. But for those with chronic anxiety, it's an ever-present condition that can erode self-confidence and distort personal beliefs. In my life, there were times when even stepping into the next room felt like scaling a mountain. Living with anxiety is complex and perplexing, as it can be triggered by many situations without any clear reason. Expressing my struggle with anxiety is challenging, especially when it includes elements that are hard for others to understand. Consequently, feelings get internalized, and before you know it, you're living a life far removed from what it once was. Even with professional help, their methods can feel invasive and lead to defensiveness. Their efforts are appreciated, but a less intrusive approach respecting personal boundaries would be preferred. Understanding the challenges of living with anxiety is difficult for those without mental or physical impairments. Everyday tasks can become overwhelming. Even mundane activities can trigger anxiety, such as watching TV, stepping outside, or even staying indoors. In my case, most brands and things can trigger my anxiety. Despite this, I'm slowly finding ways to cope, with minimal dependence on medication. Living with anxiety means suppressing instinct and impulse, which can be detrimental to health. My coping strategies include washing my clothes in plain water, not brushing my teeth, and eating and drinking in moderation. Suppressing instinct and impulse is not a healthy way to live, but it's the only way I know how to manage my overwhelming anxiety. I often find myself pleading, "Heaven help me, please." Life, as the greatest teacher, offers invaluable lessons of resilience and strength that enrich our lives. Being altruistic is a trait that many aspire to have. Altruism, the selfless concern for others' well-being, is a trait many people aim to embody. This noble quality involves prioritizing others' needs, fostering community, and promoting a culture of generosity. It is highly valued in society, making it a characteristic many aspire to cultivate. Friendship is more than a precious gift, it is a necessity for human survival and growth. It constitutes a significant part of our social fabric, facilitating the exchange of ideas, emotions, and experiences. Personally, my passion for writing has often superseded the pursuit of friendships. However, this doesn't imply my work is entirely altruistic. I am motivated by a deep-seated calling to complete my work, which I believe can positively impact the world and effect meaningful change. My moral compass keeps me steadfast on this path. It's not selfish desires or an overflow of sympathy, but rather my deep-rooted sense of responsibility towards my craft that propels me. Over my life, especially in the last 2 decades, I have witnessed the harsh realities of wrongful parenting, societal isolation, and crippling behaviors. These experiences have shaped my understanding of pain and adversity, informing my work. I have experienced the effects of deviousness, trickery, disbelief, humiliation, chastity, and beliefs. These characteristics cast a shadow over my existence, but their intensity has decreased after years of resilience and determination. My journey has been marked by continuous self-improvement and learning from past experiences. Peter M. Hacker, in his book Moral Powers, A Study of Human Nature, argues that a person's life trajectory relies on their choices. However, I disagree with this notion. I have experienced my personal dignity's violation, and the exercise of free will turned into grace. Everyone deserves respect, but I feel my respect was chastised. The journey of rebuilding self-respect is arduous, fraught with hurdles, and accompanied by feelings of remorse and repentance for past deeds and thoughts. The solitude and loneliness I experience seem to be a fitting punishment for unintentional mistakes. However, I am determined to deliver my ideology, which I believe is virtuous and can bring about positive change. The Teenage Brain. In her book The Teenage Brain, a neuroscientist's survival guide to raising adolescents and young adults, the author explores the unique challenges and opportunities presented by the teenage brain. From my personal standpoint, my understanding of the teenage brain is greatly influenced by the insights provided in the aforementioned book. The teenage brain is in a critical developmental stage. It is capable of remarkable learning, but the vigor of adolescence may lead to impulsivity, risk-taking, irrational decisions, mood swings, and poor judgment. As adults, it is our responsibility to guide them during this transitional period. Teenagers may appear mature, but their brains are still developing. Hormonal changes add another layer of complexity. Their brains can signal dangers in crisis, but the frontal lobe, which is responsible for decision-making and problem-solving, may fail to respond to obvious cues. It is crucial to educate teenagers about alcohol's dangers and empower them to make informed decisions. The teenage brain, while incredibly vulnerable, is also powerful, leading to often irrational behavior. Alcohol can directly affect brain synapses and memory. The earlier and the larger the quantity of alcohol consumed, the more severe the damage can be. Understanding the long-term effects of alcohol and questioning if the temporary high is worth the potential damage is crucial. Bias. The majority's perceptions often neglect the minority's experiences. In my books, I aim to validate and reassure those individuals who lack a platform to voice their views. I resonate deeply with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words that we will have to repent in this generation not just for the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people but for the appalling silence of the good people. This notion is further explored in Dolly Chugg's book The Person You Mean to Be. We don't always live up to our ideals. Most people consider themselves good, but everyone has different realities. Some of us harbor biases towards particular minority groups, often resulting from ignorance or a firm belief in being right. I am no stranger to this bias. I once offered to help a woman in a wheelchair at a grocery store, only to be rebuked. I realized then that I am biased against the very group I am trying to help. It's a stark reminder of the battle ahead. A revolution requires both heat, extreme movements, novelty, and light, protest at an entry level, resolution, to make a significant impact. I have spoken publicly and written books on multiple causes that I'm passionate about, such as disability inequality, anti-drink/drug driving, parenting, society, and mental health. I strive to be as honest as my life realistically permits. I am aware that some of the stigmatizing thoughts that cross my mind are disturbing, even though they seem unintentional, primarily due to my uncomfortable history of deep psychological effects. By my late 30s, I had grown considerably, particularly in the last 6 months since my late maturation. During this time, I developed certain identities that I am not proud of. However, I ensure that these identities have little to no effect on the real world as they remain confined to my mind. Still, I won't deny the possibility that someone might be aware of these troubling thoughts. I try to resist these thoughts by thinking positively, a method often recommended for counteracting negative thinking. Moving from being a good person to a goodish person isn't wrong. It's important to acknowledge feelings of unease and guilt. Dealing with shame is difficult, but I believe my past mistakes serve as valuable lessons that prepare me for entering uncharted territories and contributing to a greater humanity. Stereotypes often share common features such as competitive threat and low warmth. A communal being, on the other hand, exhibits high warmth and competence. High or low status affects groups. Stereotypes of black people, homeless individuals, drug addicts, and people with disabilities are all considered low status and low competence. Psychological safety can sometimes prevent us from acknowledging our biases. However, Adopting a growth mindset allows us to introspect, learn by taking risks, and deepen superficial friendships. It's a choice between willful ignorance and willful awareness. Nervousness and ignorance can be combated by adopting a growth mindset. We are faced with another daunting task. The mere words sex and gender are considered unconscious bias. Sex is biological, while gender is social. Binary categories lead to more exclusion, but since everyone is excluded from something, we should all strive to become conscious of our invisible biases and improve our self-awareness. This will lead to better individuals and, consequently, a better world. If we view people as competent, we perceive them as individuals. Low competence or status results in perceptual changes in visual acuity, leading to dehumanization, a form of stereotyping. I don't want to be influenced by the warm glow effect and base my work on savior mode or sympathy mode, as these approaches indicate that I am not reciprocating and basing my work on my own needs. While I disagree with D. Chugg, I have learned to tolerate my own needs to a certain extent. I feel sympathy for minorities because I am part of this group. I believe in my work and feel that to whatever extent it may be considered savior mode, it will help various groups, from minorities experiencing prejudices and inequality to majority groups grappling with unconscious biases. It encourages engaging in conversations about issues that many are biased about. As a white male, I have some degree of privilege. However, as a disabled white male, my privilege differs from that of women, black individuals, the homeless, drug addicts, or alcoholics. My best intentions are with this book, and I hope that regardless of how you perceive me, you will look at the messages I'm trying to convey. I am doing my bit to improve humanity's dismay. Comprehending microaggression offenses. In our diverse society, phrases like "some of my friends are," or "I know exactly what you're going through," are often spoken innocently. However, they can inadvertently lead to feelings of exclusion and misunderstanding. Personally, I can assure you that these phrases often foster a sense of alienation instead of admiration or understanding. Diversity isn't about lumping individuals together under a single label. It's about embracing and understanding the unique experiences each person brings to the table. This is particularly important for people with disabilities, whose experiences span a vast and varied spectrum. As we navigate our diverse world, it's crucial to be conscious of the subtle acts that can include or exclude others. These acts, while seemingly insignificant, can profoundly impact how welcome someone feels. By focusing on inclusion and carefully considering our words and actions, we can reduce these unintentional slights. This evolution of our behavior is integral to creating a more understanding society. Understanding unconscious bias. Everything you need to know about our hidden prejudices by author Annie Burdick delves into the subject of bias. Like every human, you are not immune to unconscious bias, which is unintentional and often slips under our conscious awareness. This differs from conscious bias, which is intentional and overtly harmful. The first step towards countering these biases is to become consciously unbiased, which involves recognizing and challenging your preconceived notions. Our brains, wired to take shortcuts for efficient functioning, have developed biases over time that we're often unaware of. Societal influences play a significant role in shaping these biases. Trauma too can lead to deeply rooted bias, which can only be combated through active recognition and understanding. Stereotype threat influences individuals based on factors like religion, sexuality, and background. It's not uncommon to witness active bias in everyday scenarios, with people often categorized by their gender or race. The study of bias is a lifelong journey, requiring constant vigilance and self-reflection. It's crucial to ensure that bias, unconscious or not, does not translate into discriminatory actions. Bias is a human characteristic, not a moral failing. Promoting acceptance, empathy, and diversity are critical steps towards combating bias. Disability is a widely prevalent bias that the community often unconsciously normalizes. Bias pervades even sectors like healthcare and education, disproportionately affecting people with disabilities and different races or ethnicities. Understanding your own biases requires education, research, and a deep dive into self-understanding. Having open conversations about your mission to uncover your biases is necessary. Online tests for implicit biases can be a helpful tool. It's not uncommon to underestimate yourself or harbor negative thoughts about your abilities. Take time to reflect and learn more about your own biases. Reacting to bias, becoming an ally, and speaking up when you witness bias are proactive measures one can take. It's necessary to stand your ground but avoid aggression. Challenging and conquering bias, while challenging, is worth the effort and can be empowering. Always question, always reflect, and strive to add a touch of love to the world.